Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Thursday, March 19th, 2026 episode of the Marco Dre Show. Thank you for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. Folks, we've got some very pressing information to go over today. Lots of stuff happening in the world, especially the escalations now that we're seeing in this Iran war that is not stopping at all. So we got to go over that, ladies and gentlemen. We've also got some other great articles for you, so I hope you'll stick around for the entirety of today's show. Lots of great stuff going on. Let's talk about Iran, though. Why not? Why not? Right? Remember we were told, what was it? Short-term pain for long-term gain. Remember that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that's going to take place anytime soon. I think it's going to be long-term pain forever. And I hate to tell you that. I really do. But this war on day 20 now is showing no end in sight. In fact, we're about to escalate very sharply. What Israel did yesterday was so idiotic. They bombed a giant gas field called the South Pars in Iran. And now Tehran has now vowed to retaliate against every single energy target, every installation all around the Persian Gulf. Imagine that. So we're not just hitting military targets anymore. Now we're talking about hitting critical energy infrastructures that the world relies on. What is that going to do now? What's that going to do to the price of oil? We'll talk about that momentarily. I was listening to Pepe Escobar speak yesterday, and he said that he heard from a source inside the Iranian government that Iran is ready now for total war. Can you believe this? So we're now jumping it up a notch now. By the way, this South Pars gas field is the world's largest natural gas field, and it's the core of Iran's energy supply. Israel also struck the South Pars refinery that is linked to this. Other oil and petrochemical sites have also reportedly been struck inside the Bashir province, inside Iran as well. So now they're saying to themselves, it's on. The war is now on, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I don't know what more I could say to you about this. This is just out of control now. So they put the warning out there. They put a very clear statement now. The IRGC-linked Tasnim News issued an urgent warning telling people in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and inside Qatar, at all of these major gas sites, that they will now become legitimate targets that could very well be struck very soon. Now, I have not, as of today, been told of any strikes that have taken place on these particular facilities or these locations yet, but these are the ones that are in Iran's purview. The Samref refinery inside Saudi Arabia, their Jubail petrochemical complex. Those are both on the radar of Iran. The Al Hassan gas field inside the UAE. We're talking about the Haifa refinery inside Israel. This supplies energy all throughout central Israel. They hit this during the 12-day war, and they caused blackouts going all throughout central Israel last time. This is where we're headed, folks. The Masaid petrochemical complex inside Qatar. This has links to Chevron inside the United States. What does that mean for the United States, then? Certainly nothing good for Chevron, and of course their stocks. And then we have the Ras Laffan refinery inside Qatar. This is the largest gas terminal in the world, ladies and gentlemen. So we're not talking about just some small little operation here that's conducive to the energy supply. We're talking about these are the largest energy sectors, largest terminals in these countries that are now going to be struck and out of commission. Do we not think this is going to play a role on oil supply or oil stocks or what that means for the price of gasoline, liquefied natural gas? This is going to cause things to tumble out of control, ladies and gentlemen. And for the people that aren't paying attention, which is a lot of people, by the way, they just don't get it. They think, oh, we're beating them, we're destroying them. They're soon going to, cry uncle. Everything's going back to normal soon. Remember, short-term pain for long-term gain. Remember that? Well, I don't think it's going to be short-term pain. I think it's going to be long-term pain for absolutely no gain. What is the gain we get from this? With Iran's government still very much well intact and ready to respond to these threats to them. What is the objective of this? What are we trying to accomplish here? To see if they'll do it? It looks very much likely that they will do it, ladies and gentlemen. And when they do, expect those gas prices to soar. Now, the article in Bloomberg goes on to say, by the way, I can corroborate this right now, ladies and gentlemen. It says Brent crude now jumped after Iran's warning, so not even after the supply has been hit, but after this warning, remember, rhetoric counts, words matter, climbing as much as 6% to more than $109 a barrel. I just checked CNBC right now, and Brent crude is trading at $110.75, up 3.14% from yesterday's close. And we've got WTI crude now trading at $98.40. There we go. Can you imagine when this supply is gone? When it's no longer able to be used? When these refineries are closed for God knows how long? But we're not even just talking about hitting the refineries. We're talking about hitting the actual supply. This would be like talking about striking and blowing up the Orinoco oil belt inside Venezuela, the largest crude oil supply in the world. 303 billion barrels of oil. Gone. Can you imagine that? We're talking about destroying, really, the global economy. We're talking about global collapse. Especially not just for Iran, not just for Saudi Arabia, or Israel, or Kuwait, or the UAE. We're talking about the world. Because the world runs on oil, ladies and gentlemen. I know some of you don't want to believe that, but that's the truth of the matter. Okay? That's the way the world works. We now got Saudi Arabia now scrambling to ramp up its oil exports. Obviously, this is very crucial to them. They understand this. They're now trying to use pipelines to get their oil to the western ports of Yanbu, to put this into oil tankers inside the Red Sea to try to circumvent what's taking place inside the Persian Gulf. Did you ever expect to hear anything like this, ladies and gentlemen? Rerouting oil now, some 750 miles, try to get to a port on the western side of the Arabian Peninsula so they can still continue to make money. And with these threats looming, I would imagine they would try to get as much oil out of this region as they possibly could. This is insanity. And again, we don't have any clear objective as to what's going on here. Why would we go out and strike this? Why would we do this? Why would we let Israel do this too, by the way? Now, to President Trump's credit, he did rebuke what took place on this this gas field, rather. This is out of Newsweek. It says President Trump's threat now, though, to blow up the world's largest gas field has raised concerns that such a move could spark a regional escalation and further turbulence to energy markets. Well, no kidding. So after he refutes what Israel does, he says, if you just strike these other oil refineries, if you strike these gas fields, these petrochemical refineries, we're now going to strike your entire field again. Okay, well, there you go. Has Iran backed down yet? Let me just ask you, has Iran backed down yet? They haven't. Everything they said they were going to do, they have done. So it's in my estimation that sometime in the next couple of days, you will see these areas get hit. And we will probably see the United States, again, strike the South Pars gas field as well, destroying this supply. I don't know what this means for the world, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what this means at all. Where do we go from here? How do we replenish this supply that's no longer going to be able to be used? How much longer are we going to see gas prices to what they are? Or will gas hit what we think it's going to hit, these oil prices, for example, hitting $200 a barrel? Or maybe even more. We don't even know. We're not just talking about shutting off transportation. We're talking about destroying an entire energy field. This is where we are right now. And no one's rhetoric is slowing down. No one is talking about ending this. We should have been out of this by now. Yet we still see the war start to ramp up. And I don't see any end in sight with this. If we start hitting these energy sectors, these refineries, these fields, we're in a war, folks. And we're not just going to be in a war as far as on the ground. We're talking about a war now in our economic sector. It's going to be like Mad Max, for God's sakes. I mean, we're talking about just everything's out of control, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't really know much more I could say to you about this. I'd like to tell you that things are going to get better, but I don't see any sign of that at all, unfortunately. This is not good. You know, President Trump can make all the Truth Social statements he'd like, right? Posting online. I don't think they give a damn, the Iranians. They are looking at actions. So long as you are striking them, they will continue to strike and hit you. That's the way I see things right now. I don't see any end in sight for this, so long as we continue this. Because what's the objective? We don't even know. He takes a Truth Social saying no more attacks by Israel after Israel reported to have launched strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field. What good does that do now? You've already struck. You're not going to get a ceasefire from them. You might ask again, but they're not going to give it to you. And if you destroy their critical energy infrastructure, expect all those sites I just listed to you to be struck. 100%. So get ready for that, ladies and gentlemen. If I were you, I would gas up immediately. I'll just forewarn you, I would gas up immediately. If you have extra gas cans, I'd fill those up too. Because that gas is going to become much more expensive following these strikes. So, you know, Trump's reassurance that Israel will no longer strike these areas means nothing. And of course, now he threatens them with striking the same exact location should Iran now retaliate. Well, folks, Iran is going to retaliate. Because they said they were going to retaliate. This is where we are in this conflict, folks. And it's very sad. Very sad, folks. Yep, this is going to be very devastating for our economy. Certainly the economies of Europe and Asia that rely on this oil. And it's going to be a long one. Just so we're all aware of this. This is going to go on for quite some time. So get ready. Don't say I didn't warn you. I told you. I tell you at the end of every show. Make sure you're staying prepped. Food, extra water stored up. Ammunition, right? For your firearms. Medicines right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's very crucial. If the petrochemical industry goes away, which again we're very heavily reliant on coming out of China, for example, you're going to have access to your medicine. So I would stock up on medication. That's just what I would do. I'd buy some and just have it. Because what are you going to do if you don't have access to this after this conflict really starts to get out of control? It's going to get much, much worse. So I would store up. I would store up on fuel if I had to. If I were you, I would get that as well, because now this is going to be in for the long haul. And when things can't get transported anymore because of lack of energy, you're going to wish you had done this. So this is me telling you, forewarning, this is going to get much more out of control very, very soon inside the United States. We're already seeing gas prices up at least 60%, and they will continue to go up as a result of this. So there we are, folks. There we are. And by the way, I don't know if this is the end for the Gulf Arab states as well. I don't know if it's for this family rule throughout all these countries right now, if it's over, if the people will rise up and demand that the United States gets the hell out of there. I think we're going to see a brand new Middle East after this. This is what I foresee, Middle East. This is what I think is going to be the end result of all this. I don't see this as just being everyone goes back home. I think there are going to be several demands coming from Iran that will essentially say, hey, we're not going to work like this anymore. Well, we're not going to allow you to attack us during a negotiation anymore. We're not going to have this. And I think there will be some major security cooperation agreements as a result of this as well, that the United States, that Israel particularly, has to abide by. But the Abraham Accords are now dead, folks. I want to share that with you as well. They're dead. They're gone. Forget about all that. They're done. And by the way, all those people that are saying, hey, look it, Iran is, they've depleted by 90%. What they've been firing since day one of this conflict. The first couple of days, now they're down very low. And I say to myself, okay, that's true. But we now have evidence now coming out saying that Iran is now firing even more, and they're actually hitting more per shot than they were during the first couple of days when they were first throwing out 400, 500, units launched per day. It's now starting to escalate, starting to trickle back up now. We're starting to get more drone strikes coming in. So, folks, expect this to get out of control. Expect us to pay more for our goods, our services, especially for our gas. If you're heating your home, cooling your home, those prices are going to skyrocket too this summer. So don't say I didn't warn you. You probably heard it here first because everyone's still kind of in this honeymoon phase with this war, telling you how great it is, how smart President Trump is. Well, we'll see in time, folks. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong about this. But I don't think so. You know why I don't think so? Because this article I have for us in the Gateway Pundit. Look at this. War Secretary. I love how they call him the Secretary of War. He's really the Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth responded to questions on how the United States was going to prevent a forever war in the quest to denuclearize Iran, and why the Pentagon asked for an additional $200 billion to fund this war. Yeah, did you hear about that, ladies and gentlemen? $200 billion. Where are we going to get this money from? When are we going to get this money? And why do we need $200 billion? Well, I'll let the salesman Pete Hegseth, you know what he's saying? He really should be the war salesman. That's what his name is. You know, that should be his title. On his office is war salesman. That's what he does. That's all he is. That's all he is. And let's listen to him on clip 1 right now.
Well, first of all, none of this would have been possible without Midnight Hammer, without that audacious mission with very clear goals that did obliterate their ability to enrich and the capabilities they have in those facilities. So it created the conditions for Iran to step forward and say, okay, you can reach out and touch us like that in our nuclear ambitions. You can see that we're still trying to do this. Let's make a deal. And President Trump put our two best folks on it, Steve and Jared, and they worked diligently, earnestly. I watched it to try to pursue that deal. And ultimately, I think the whole time Iran sort of said, well, we'll talk. As we build more missiles and as we build more UAVs and we create this conventional umbrella so that if we chose to, we could try to reconstitute the program.
Where's the evidence for this, by the way, folks? I hate to stop this, but it is kind of long, so I wanted to stop it anyways. Where is the evidence for this? They were simply saying to you that, yes, we have 450 kilos of 60% highly enriched uranium. Yes, we have that. That's all we have right now. Therefore, how could you build a bomb with that? And if this was built, if this was collected last year when everything was obliterated, and they're, again, trying to do this to strike the United States, to strike Israel, why have they not continued the program? If everything's back up and running, why is that still just enriched to 60%? Wouldn't the proper response to that be, from a United States standpoint, being, okay, let us come in and verify you only have 60% highly enriched uranium? Wouldn't that be the next step to do this before thinking that, hey, they're going to build 10 nuclear bombs now? That's what they're going to do right now. I told you yesterday on the show, why would they go into negotiations if this was their plan? Why would they do that? It doesn't make any bit of sense. Why would you go into negotiations about nuclear weapons if your intent was to build these weapons and to use them against said targets, the United States, Israel? It just doesn't add up, folks. It just doesn't pass the smell test. But this is Hegseth saying, hey, look, they can enrich uranium. Therefore, now we must strike. This is what he's trying to sell you right now. But I wouldn't buy it.
And sort of naively thinking that President Trump wouldn't do something about it. And that's why, as Secretary Rubio has said, and I've said, it's the conventional umbrella that was growing and growing and growing that was meant to protect that nuclear capability. So you had to address both what happened with Midnight Hammer and what happened with that as well. As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move, obviously. It takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future, ensure that our ammunition is everything's refilled, and not just refilled, but above and beyond. I mean, President Trump, as he said, rebuilt the military in his first term, didn't.
Let's pause again. He talks about rebuilding. I thought President Trump just recently came out and said we have unlimited supplies of munitions for this war. Did he not say that to us? I believe he did. So if we have unlimited supply, what is the need for this $200 billion? Why do we need to replenish anything? If the military has been rebuilt, like President Trump did during his first term, why do we have to ask for another $200 billion for these weapons contractors? Well, because, ladies and gentlemen, we are running out of these munitions. We've given up a lot of munitions to other countries, particularly Ukraine. We've given them lots of our old munitions, if you will. But we were not expecting to use up so much of our munitions. But that's why we're seeing Patriot missiles. We only make, I think, about 70, 80 of them per year. That's why we're seeing we're using up a lot of our stockpiles. We don't have it. We weren't expecting Iran to retaliate as they were and to strike as they would. And now we're trying to scramble and say, listen, we've got to get this. We got to get this back. We just had to ask Japan and South Korea back for a lot of these defensive missiles right now, these Patriots, so we can have them. We know that Israel's running low on Arrow 2, Arrow 3 defensive missiles. So this is why you're seeing these things right now. This is why the rhetoric is pushing up now. We got to rebuild now. Yeah, we got, it's Joe Biden's fault too. Well, Joe Biden did have a role to play in that. But you shouldn't go to war, folks, unless you know for sure you have what you need to go to war. I think that would be the smart thing if it was planned properly, which it was not. And by the way, you can thank Pete Hegseth for this, because I know for sure the chair of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, said this, that we don't have the resources to continue this war for any extended period of time. That's the truth of the matter. Let's let him finish.
I think he'd use it as dynamically in his second, but he had. So thank goodness he did that. And an investment like this is meant to say, hey, we'll replace anything that was spent. And now that we're reviving our defense industrial base and rebuilding the arsenal of freedom and cutting deals like our great deputy secretaries here is doing, long lead times on exquisite munitions, we're going to be refilled faster than anyone imagined. And I think, we're also still dealing with the environment that Joe Biden created, which was depleting those stockholds and not sending them to our own military, but to Ukraine.
Okay, so the war salesman really has no answer to this. He's essentially telling us, ladies and gentlemen, we're depleted in our stockpiles. We need to rebuild quickly and fast. We've got to get the money out there. So now we got to request to Congress to fund this war now that they didn't even approve of, by the way. They just punted, if you will, to the president. And now we've got to get more of these munitions built. That's what it comes down to. So, we'll get stuff back from Japan, South Korea. We'll get some of this back. We'll continue lobbying back and forth now. We'll reduce, because, again, they're not striking as much. Well, they are striking as much. They're just not sending out as many missiles. And some of our installations, yes, but they're already destroyed, primarily. And we don't have any other areas in the region. Now it's just simply hitting these Gulf Arab states, which is on them, not on the United States. This is why I'm telling you, there's going to be some kind of divorce inside the Middle East with the United States after this fact. And by the way, I think there's going to be these, security cooperation agreements from the United States and any of these other countries should we even stay there. Because we're not protecting these countries right now. And their economies are struggling as a result of this. Hitting a desalination plant inside Qatar that relies on 80% of their drinking water. What's going to happen to their people when they use up all this supply now? That's a big thing we haven't seen yet. So it's going to get worse. It's going to get much more out of control. We are now in this war, folks. This is why we're asking for so much more money. That's why President Trump requested a $1.5 trillion national defense authorization to spend on the military in the next fiscal year. This is why he wants this. We already spend over $901 billion on our military. More than the next 10 countries behind us. And yet we're out of missiles this quickly? Yeah, well, there it is, folks. There it is. When you bomb countries ad nauseum, and by the way, President Trump bombed 8 different countries last year. How much money did we spend bombing the Houthi rebels? What did we achieve with that? Nothing. What are we going to do when they get in this war too, by the way? That's what I'm curious about. What is going to happen when the Houthi rebels inside Yemen start to lob missiles into Israel, inside to Haifa, Tel Aviv, strike all of their ports? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen to the state of Israel? What's their fate? No one's asked these questions. Everyone's still thinking, well, we got to do this. Imminent threat, right? Don't listen to Joe Kent. It's an imminent threat, right? Okay. He may have leaked some information. Don't listen to a word he said. Okay, fine. But what are we seeing? All these actions are not of a country that has unlimited supplies of munitions. This is a country that's saying, hey, we got to get building now, folks. And we'll give you this money now, and you've got to start building more than you ever have. That's what is being said, at least that's what I think. Because you wouldn't ask for this money just out of the blue. So we've got to understand that the cost of this war has greatly exceeded over $11 billion in just the first week, by the way. We're now on week 3, with no end in sight. So we've got to get ready for the long haul for this. They need more money for this war. And believe you me, they will use up all of that $200 billion and probably ask for even more. I think that's the obvious take from this, folks. We need to replenish. We don't have the stockpiles that are necessary to make any effect that we would like to see. But they're really scrambling to do all this. So only time will tell, should Congress do this? I imagine they will. But did you vote for this, folks? Did you vote for another $200 billion now to be given now to the defense budget now for another war that we were supposed to stay out of? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't see it that way. All right, folks, let's move on. The Wall Street Journal. How waiving the Jones Act for oil tankers would actually work. And so we see the problem with our defense spending, number one, and of course our stockpiles and munitions. We're struggling to keep that afloat. We've got to build more. But now we've got to talk about the economy as a whole. This is what is taking place. President Trump sees this. He understands this, by the way. He's not stupid. Misinformed, perhaps, but certainly not stupid. He understands that he's created a mess here with this economy. And this is not going to look good for the 2026 midterms if everyone's paying a hell of a lot more for gas, paying a hell of a lot more for goods, or if they simply don't have any supply for it. So now President Trump has now temporarily waived a century-old shipping law in a bid to lower the cost of moving oil, gas, and other fuels around the United States. Here's how they want this to work. They would now allow foreign ships to transport cargoes of vital products such as jet fuel, fertilizer. We talked about that in yesterday's show. Farmers are now scrambling to try to make sure they have enough to pay for it and to actually have it to use to produce crops inside the United States. What's going to happen when we don't have crops in the United States? That's going to be another big blunder. Cost of beef, all those vegetables, all those things are going to start going up, folks. That's why I always tell you, prepare, plan ahead. But for the next 60 days, they want to utilize foreign ships to help transport these goods around the United States. So this meaningful change from the current law, which dates back to the 1920s, requires all goods moving between the United States ports to sail on a U.S. flag ship that are built by the United States inside an American shipyard and are crewed by American sailors. That in turn makes those ships more expensive. So the Jones Act was really put into place to promote and to protect U.S. shipbuilding first and foremost. But most tankers that carry oil, such as, fuels like gasoline and diesel, liquefied natural gas, aren't always American-made. It costs at least 3 times as much to build such vessels in the U.S., and we haven't been doing that, especially when we compare that to the shipbuilding in nations like South Korea and China, for example. So Trump now wants to sign this waiver, allow these foreign ships to move the coal, move the oil, natural gas, jet fuel, you name it, other fuels, for example, between United States ports, which would hopefully ease the cost of shipping. Because once the cost of shipping goes up, what happens to that price? For those fuels, they go up as well. And he already knows he's struggling to keep the prices down inside the United States. So for instance, you have foreign tankers could be used to move more gasoline and diesel produced between refineries in, let's say, Texas and Louisiana to get them to markets on the eastern seaboard of the United States. That's why you're seeing this take place right now. So, again, that tells me we're worried about the price of these commodities. We feel they're going to go up. And the only way to hopefully reduce those costs is to, again, use this Jones Act to allow other foreign ships now to ship these commodities to other ports inside the United States. That's why you're seeing this take place. So let's all be aware of that. So nothing good on that front, but maybe Trump will keep the prices down for the time being for the next 2 months. We'll have to see how that all works out as well. But it's going to cost more, folks. Once these oil prices continue to go up per barrel, it's going to cost even those ships from China, South Korea, you name it, to get those goods to where they're going. So we can expect those imports to go up as well. And I'd like to see if he's going to take off the 15% global tariff, by the way, on these imports to help ease the cost of these goods. We haven't heard anything about that as of late, but that would be something I would look into, Mr. President. Let's keep those prices down. All right, let's move on. Let's see where we are now. Politico. By the way, let's move away from the economy for a little bit. But we'll talk about all that tomorrow and more. Politico now says that the FBI is now buying data that can be used to track people. That's what Kash Patel has now said. Yep, he said that during a Senate hearing yesterday. And this is the first confirmation that the agency is actively buying people's data since former Director Christopher Wray said it in 2023, that the FBI has now purchased location data in the past, but was not doing so at the time. Yeah. This is the same Christopher Wray that, bought that one program that President Trump wanted to use so they could track people? Yep, it's all making sense now, folks, isn't it? That your government spies on you? We have no Fourth Amendment rights at all? We have zero right to privacy anymore. I mean, people don't even know what the word privacy is. They can't even spell it. Here we are now. This is how they get through these things. He says, we do purchase commercially available information that's consistent with the Constitution and the laws under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. And it has led to some valuable intelligence for us, Patel told senators at the Intelligence Committee's annual hearing yesterday. Oh, really? Valuable for you, is it? Really? Interesting. The U.S. Supreme Court has required law enforcement agencies to obtain a warrant for getting people's location data from their cell phone providers since 2018, but data brokers offer an alternative avenue by purchasing the information directly. Oh, isn't that nice? So these data brokers can take your information, they can put it online, for example, and they sell it and make a hell of a lot of money. This is why you see companies like Meta, for example, they make a hell of a lot of money. Why? Because they sell your information. You sign that waiver when you open up those apps. They sell the pictures, where you are, location, this and that, what you like, what you buy, all this stuff. And they make a lot of money on it, too. Now, many lawmakers want to end this practice, and for good reason, too, because, number one, you didn't give that consent, did you? Getting this information about you without any type of warrant? It's outrageous. And again, it's a total foul on the Fourth Amendment. And you're using technology to gather this information on people, to store it and do God knows what with. So, what's taking place now, we have Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon and Mike Lee of Utah, Democrat and Republican alike, now introducing the Government Surveillance Reform Act, which would require federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies to obtain a warrant to buy Americans' personal information. Why would you want the government to have personal information of you? Why do they need that information? Why would I want the FBI to have this information on me? And don't give me the, well, I haven't done anything wrong, therefore I don't care. Everybody has a right to privacy in this country. 100% you have a right to privacy. So in the government's business, what you're doing, in the confines of your own home, should it be legal, of course, but to take this information, to sell it, make money off it, to sell to the government is, again, beyond words here. It's a total violation of our Fourth Amendment, yet nothing seems to take place. And the bill now has a House counterpart introduced by Zoe Lofgren of California and Warren Davidson of Ohio, Committee Chair Tom Cotton defended the practice at the hearing. What did he say? Well, so the keywords are commercially available. If any other person can buy it, and the FBI can buy it, and it helps them locate a depraved child molester or a savage cartel criminal, I would certainly hope that the FBI is doing anything it can to make Americans safe. Well, this is guilty before you're guilty before you're charged with anything. You may be a criminal of some sort of crime, therefore we can grab your information. Unbelievable. We have the right to be innocent before proven guilty, do we not? That's what our Constitution tells us, right? Innocent until proven guilty. But Tom Cotton's saying, well, no, wait a minute. Some sick lunatic might be out there. We can maybe get them while they're doing this. It's great. Really? We can't seem to find anybody on the Epstein list that's guilty of any type of crime. Amazing, isn't it? Very, very interesting, I'd have to say. This is a breach of the Fourth Amendment. You have a right to privacy. You are innocent until proven guilty. Should they think you are doing something illegal, then they can get a warrant. That's what it comes down to. You don't just have a right to gather information about people. You have a right to be free inside your home. You have a right to freely move on your way in this country. And these data brokers, by the way, that generally illegally collect your information, by the way, without your knowing, post it online so people can obtain this information about you. Again, just shows you the breach of third parties that go out there, they get your information. Again, usually through apps you use, information like that. You make purchases, they get that data, they sell it. And then, of course, it's posted online so anyone can view that. Now, of course, there are ways to get around that, of course. You have to pay for it, unfortunately. But these things should be stopped. Nobody's consenting to have your information put online or to be sold to government agencies. God only knows what they would do with that information. But this is the reality of the situation. They take these transactions that you make. Let's say you purchased a firearm. Let's just go on a hypothetical. Let's say you're in a state that doesn't require you to register these weapons with the government. Right? Okay, that's good, right? We don't want a database for the government to have to know who owns which firearms. But if you make a purchase, for example, at a Bass Pro Shop, you swipe your debit card or your credit card, and that information gets sold now. They say, oh, look at this firearm that so-and-so purchased at said location, who lives at this address. Now we can put this into our system now. We can collect that information. Oh, he bought another one a couple of months later. He might be a threat to society. Oh, dear. You see how these things could work. They could use those things against you. So the only thing I want to conclude with all this, ladies and gentlemen, is you have a right to privacy. The government has to obtain a warrant before serving you with any type of arrest. And you are innocent until proven guilty. That's the bottom line. Don't be complacent with this because you like using your cell phone or God knows what else you like to use. You have a right to privacy. The government has no right to encroach on your freedom. And they are clearly doing so in these cases. Let's keep an eye on these government surveillance reform acts and see how they would work. I like that both Wyden and Lee are working on ways to curb federal law enforcement and the intel agencies to obtain a warrant before they buy your information. And I think we should go a step further. You should not just have your information put where anyone can find it should they be looking for it. You have a right to privacy. Now, if you waive that right, that's something different. But I think the vast majority of Americans would say, no, this is not a good thing. Not at all. And speaking of safety, especially national safety and security, let's talk about this article in the New York Post. It says here that John Fetterman now has saved Markwayne Mullin, who's now the nominee to lead the Department of Homeland Security after Kristi Noem's firing. So it looks like Fetterman has now crossed party lines to advance his colleague, Markwayne Mullin, to obviously this nomination. That's what it looks like. Made it out of the committee 8-7 in Mullin's favor now. And it looks like he will probably get the votes. All he needs is 51 votes, and it looks like he'll likely get that. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told reporters on Wednesday that Mullin will receive a final confirmation vote, hopefully early next week. It looks like he'll get that, folks. I think he will. I think the one naysayer you will see in this will be Rand Paul. They have a sordid history with each other of going back and forth. So I think you'll see Paul being probably the one person saying, you know what, I'm not going to vote for him. But, you get someone like a John Fetterman that crosses over the party line. I think you'll get those votes. So looks like Markwayne Mullin will be that person. I don't know how he will respond in this position. I don't know what he would do differently than someone like a Kristi Noem. But we need to have someone in line who, once he gets to his hearing, will he follow the law? That's what we want to know. That's what we need to know from him. Are you going to follow the law? Are you going to have agents obtain a warrant as given by the law, by the Constitution, by your Fifth Amendment right? Or will we simply do what we've been doing? Searching for people, knocking on doors, going in there, arresting people on the streets. I mean, folks, that's illegal. Even if someone's in this country illegally, that act is illegal. You can't do that. You have to have a reason why you're arresting someone, not because of how they look or what language they're speaking. And I agree, this is very difficult for the Department of Homeland Security. We need to be smart about this, though. We have to find ways to locate people that are here illegally, but they are allowed due process. I think that's the biggest takeaway from all this. Now, he did say he would follow the law, but I think to ease people into voting for him, he needs to let people know that, yes, he's going to follow the law, number one. And by doing so, he will allow due process. That's what it comes down to. You got to have due process when you're serving these warrants. And you got to have these warrants. Now, people will argue and say, listen, we got millions of illegals in this country. To get a judge to sign off on all these warrants, it'd be almost impossible. And I agree, it's going to be a very difficult process. That's why I'm saying these things. But each and every day you have judges sign off on X number of how many you have. You can get them to sign. And they have to go out and serve those warrants on that particular day. That's the way these things need to work. And if they don't work, you're not following the Constitution. That's just the way it is, folks. And there's no way to get around that. So, Markwayne Mullin, again, if he follows the law, he has my support. He needs to obviously have honor in this position. He's a go-getter. I won't mince any words. This guy's a former MMA fighter, so yeah, he's a red-blooded patriot, but he's got to follow the law. He's got to follow the law and ensure that every single person will be allowed due process. That's what needs to be done here. And there should be nothing else opposite of that. So let's be very much clear about all this. So it looks like Fetterman will cast the vote for Markwayne Mullin, and it looks like he will get through on this, it seems, next week. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Let's move into this, though. We talked a little bit about Epstein earlier. We got the Democrats now walking out of a Bondi meeting on the Epstein files. Look at this. It says Democratic lawmakers stormed out of a closed-door briefing with Justice Department leaders about Jeffrey Epstein, saying that they didn't trust the Attorney General to fully answer their questions unless forced to do so under oath. So Bondi and Todd Blanche were offering to meet with lawmakers on Capitol Hill amid the sustained bipartisan criticism over their handling of the files. Well, no kidding. All this information was supposed to be released to the American people by December 19th of 2025. We're now towards the end of March. And we have to ask ourselves the question about all this. Why has this not been released to the public? Why not? Why didn't she make her meeting on January 3rd, for example, where she's supposed to explain to the American people why she didn't release this information? All these things are very much important, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to be given the answers to this. Why are they still sitting on 3 million files? Why are we getting these mass redactions in these documents? Why has nobody been prosecuted from this? Anyone that wants to see can see. There's people talking about murder. They're talking about rape. They're talking about children. They're talking about sexual assault. They're talking about ritualistic sacrifices, things of that nature. Other disgusting things I'm not going to say on the air right now. But this begs the question as to why we haven't been given these answers, folks. If you and I wrote these types of emails to each other, we would be called out on this. We would be charged for these things. People would want to know, why are you talking about this? They're talking about rape and things of that nature. I mean, this is disgusting. This is vile. And they're mentioning many prominent names as a result of this. So we've got to, again, we should be demanding answers, but I don't blame them, Republican and Democrats alike, walking out of this hearing. They try to say that there wasn't a C-SPAN camera in the room. That's why they all left. I don't know why they left, but this woman is not being transparent as she's supposed to be with the American people. That's the biggest problem with all this, I think. And people are fed up with this. They want answers to this. They want to see people prosecuted. They want to see that no one is above the law. And yet, time and time again, we're not given these proper answers. Why are they still sitting on these documents? Why are they redacting to a T the names of these perpetrators? It's very upsetting to the American people. Very upsetting, and again, I want to know why she hasn't followed the law. January 3rd, we were supposed to get an explanation as to why she has not released all these documents. Then we get another big trove of a couple million files come out. We're appalled by what we're reading. And they say, well, we don't have any really substantial information in there that we could use to prosecute anybody. And we're saying to ourselves, are you serious right now? This person's talking about violent crime. This person's talking about asking Jeffrey Epstein to kill somebody. And yet we're given no answer as to what could have taken place. Did somebody actually get killed that he's talking to? And if this is the latest batch, what's in the next 3 million? What are they redacting in this? Whose names are they redacting? Why are we not given these names? By the way, they also leaked the names of some of the victims in all this. But there's so many questions here that we're never given answers to. And again, Bondi, Blanche, they're dropping the ball on this to protect these evildoers. That's what it comes down to. And that's why people are so very much upset about all this. And this is not going to go away, folks. People are not going to forget about this. Despite there being a war right now and what have you, people are still wanting to know the truth about this. People want to know why people have not been arrested. These are highly elite people. I understand that. But no one's above the law. And they should be held accountable for anything they did illegal. And number one, I've said this to you in the past, I'll say it again. What needs to be done, they need to get the remaining 200 victims, I believe that's what the number is right now, of these young women or girls that were on the island, and say, did you see so-and-so at such a time? What did you see them do? What can you tell us about this? And you take the stories, you get the information. Obviously, it's a legal document. They sign off that they're telling the truth. And you make a case on that. That's how you do these things. What you don't do is simply say, hey, there's nothing substantial in here, right? Oh, they're just talking about murder, rape, children. Don't worry about it. Just look the other way. Hey, didn't you remember? There's a war going on right now. Don't worry about that. Go check that out. We'll deal with Epstein. Don't worry. By the way, he's dead. And the Dow Jones is doing so well. By the way, the Dow is down today, another 300 points. We'll go for that tomorrow, unfortunately. But it's almost at $45,000 now. So it's a little bit under Pam Bondi's high expectations of the 50,000 benchmark. So maybe now she'll do something about this Epstein case and hold some people accountable. By the way, that's the same woman that told us she had the Epstein client list and it was sitting on her desk for her to review. And yet, then afterwards we found out there was no client list. So, according to her. It's all very interesting to me, folks. The way these people lie to us and how the lack of transparency with this documentation is. I don't know why Ro Khanna or Thomas Massie have not held these people into account. God only knows if she'll get impeached should the Democrats take over in the fall here. But only time will tell. Oh, by the way, yesterday I talked with you about Cesar Chavez and how they're now smearing his name. This is out of Politico. It says California lawmakers are now pushing to strip Cesar Chavez's name from the state holiday. Isn't that wonderful? So again, I told you before, you're innocent until proven guilty. Has Cesar Chavez been charged with a crime? Well, of course he hasn't. He's dead. It's been dead since 1993. You're going to take an allegation from possibly 60 years ago that cannot be substantiated in any meaningful way? And by the way, I want people that are sexual abusers to be held accountable. I do. But with a lot of these high-profile people you're seeing, for example, Brett Kavanaugh, saying that he was a serial rapist. I mean, this is absurdity. She never, the Christine Blasey Ford never told anyone about it, couldn't remember the dates, couldn't remember this, couldn't remember that, but knew it was him somehow. Then you have all these accusations against President Trump, going back decades. Really? You didn't say anything till right now? And I understand women feel ashamed about what took place. I understand it's very difficult for them to relive what took place. But it just seems very odd. Dolores Huerta would co-found this organization with Cesar Chavez in 1962. Then all of a sudden, 4 years later, he decides to rape her in a grape field in Delano, California, in the Central Valley. And then she continues to work with him until he dies. Then she goes on to say that she bore 2 of his children. I mean, this is interesting to me, obviously, to hear these things. If true, I mean, can anyone corroborate this story? Because otherwise it's just what she said versus what he said. By the way, he can't say a damn thing because he's dead. So are we just going to smear his name now? Say, oh, you said this? Okay, well, we'll just scratch his name off. Don't worry about it. Well, look at what we got here. This is the brilliance coming out of Sacramento, California. California Latino legislators and their leaders are now pushing to strip Cesar Chavez's name from the official state holiday honoring his birthday, following the sexual abuse allegations, not charges, but allegations, leveled against him. Here's what they want to do now. Latino Legislative Chair Lena Gonzalez, I think it should say Latina in this article, on Wednesday told reporters that lawmakers will now pursue a name change, though she did not suggest an alternative or lay out a timeline, saying that there's going to be a short and a long-term process. Yep, anything they can do to smear Cesar Chavez's name now. Why? Because people are probably finding out he didn't like illegal aliens. That's probably number one. Yeah. It's amazing to me. So, again, you're just going to take somebody's word on this. Again, can anyone corroborate this? Can anyone definitively say, oh, yeah, she talked to me about this in 1966, some 60 years ago, and told me these things? Can we verify these children that she claims to have bore that were his? Can we definitively confirm this with DNA, for example? And can we confirm that the interaction was indeed a rape? And how do we do this now? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this woman's going to be 96 next month. I mean, she's up there. All of a sudden she comes out, and all of a sudden 2 other people who were said to be minors at the time now come forward, all together at the same time? Why'd they come out before he died? Or right after he died? I mean, that would give a little bit more credit to the situation. And if he did do these things, why wouldn't you come and tell people so we can prevent him from doing this to other women and girls? I think that's the biggest thing I have about this. This is a prominent individual, of course, in the labor laws, especially in the farm work in California. Why would we not want this person to be held accountable? Why would we not want to prevent him from doing this to other people? We should know about this if it did indeed take place. But again, I can't confirm or deny that this took place. We don't know. But look at the state legislature just totally throwing him under the bus without any substantiated evidence. I think that's the funniest part about all this. There's no evidence that shows that he actually did these things. None. You have a 95-year-old woman telling you this. I don't know her mental state of mind. I don't know Dolores Huerta. I don't know what her values are. I really don't know. I know she's a Democrat. I do know that. Not saying she's a liar, but I just find it very odd that you would wait your entire life to come out now and just say these things about Cesar Chavez. It's just very, very interesting to me. Then we have the presidential pro tem, Monique Limon, will shift the focus of celebrations away from Cesar Chavez and towards the success of the farm worker movement instead. Well, that was because of him. He and his cronies would beat the hell out of illegal aliens crossing the border and throw them back over the border. Maybe they don't want that to be known about them. But I find it funny, too, people are giving Joe Biden a little bit of a blowback because he had a bust of Cesar Chavez in his Oval Office. Again, these allegations came after he was president. I don't think you can hold Joe Biden accountable. He probably doesn't even know who Cesar Chavez is, to be honest with you. But I don't think you can hold someone accountable for something that is just given in 2026 for something you had in your office a little over 2 years ago. Just my take on that. And again, I rarely defend Joe Biden for anything, but this seems to be where we are right now. All right, let's move on. You know what? I have 3 more good articles, but I'm going to go over this one with you. We've got about 4 minutes left in the program. The one I want to go over about Nicolas Maduro, I think I'll save for tomorrow because, again, it's a pretty long article. And I want to break down to you the legality of his arrest, which is what this article in the Washington Times is about. So I think I'll save this one for tomorrow. We'll talk about a health article today because I haven't gone over health in a long time with you. And I want to kind of get back into that every week, trying to throw a couple of health articles out there for us. So let's break into it, shall we? Let's talk about this. This is out of the Medical Xpress, and it says hypertension, heart disease, deaths in young U.S. women quadrupled since 1999. So nearly 1 in 2 Americans have high blood pressure in this country. It's not a good thing. It's often called the silent killer because it harms the heart, of course, the blood vessels, and obviously that's not good for anybody, certainly not your overall health. We got to keep our heart strong, of course. And they did a study, though, and they took 25 to 44-year-olds, and they figured out between 1999 and 2023 that the number went from 1.1 deaths out of 100,000 and rose in 2023 to 4.8 deaths of 100,000 among women in this particular age group between those 2 years. It's a 24-year time span. So high blood pressure, hypertension, as it's scientifically called in the medical world, will damage the heart, and the indicator is really the heart disease risk now. Once you have this high blood pressure, once it's a chronic condition with you, you need to take these proactive steps to kind of control your blood pressure. And there's several different things you can do to prevent life-threatening cardiac events, like heart attack, for example. Not good. And yet the risks of the uncontrolled hypertension may be overlooked, especially amongst younger women. And of course, their clinicians who assess them. So the previous research has examined hypertension, heart disease risks primarily just in men and postmenopausal women, but the study is now finding for the first time to focus on younger women as well. And once you see this rising mortality, especially amongst younger women, for example, with hypertension, heart disease, this reflects the understatement that we continue to look at in the healthcare industry. So what can we do to prevent this? Is what you're asking yourself. And by the way, this goes for both men and women alike. You have to have certain lifestyle modifications. If you're a smoker, you'd want to quit smoking. You want to eat a heart-healthy diet. I would suggest going with the Mediterranean diet. And exercising more, of course, getting your feet moving every day. Try to break a sweat if you can. You don't want to have a sedentary lifestyle, simply just sitting around. Because then managing the high blood pressure becomes much more difficult, and it later leads to many more severe conditions and ailments in your life. So, here's what I would do if I were you. If you want to control your blood pressure, number 1, get more nitrous oxide into your bloodstream. So if you're over the age of 25, 30, then you got to start looking at your nitrous oxide levels in the body starting to decrease. Over time, I think it's every 10 years, it starts to drop roughly about 10%. So really like 1% a year. It starts to go down. These nitrous oxide levels in the body. So you want to try to do what you can to increase the nitrous oxide. That'll help dilate the blood vessels, it'll help expand them, and it helps for proper blood flow. The next thing I would do, ladies and gentlemen, is take mixed tocopherols vitamin E. You'll want to take mixed tocopherols. You want it to be bioavailable. You don't want anything from China or anything of that matter, so I wouldn't suggest anybody doing that. And the next thing I would do is take a magnesium supplement. Any type of magnesium will do. That's good for the heart. It's good for heart health. It's good for, obviously, the movement of the heart. So magnesium is another thing you want to look into. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, CoQ10. Coenzyme 10. Yep, that's what you want to get. You need this for the body. You need this for the heart to, again, sustain heart health. That's something you want to do as well. And finally, I do want to say, too, drinking at least half your body weight in pure water every single day. Now, somebody say, why would I do that, Jerry? So I drink coffee, I'll have a soda. No. You want to drink half your body weight in fluid ounces every single day. It helps with the blood viscosity, helps relieve stress on the heart. So those things are all good. Those are all good tips, ladies and gentlemen, to keep a strong, healthy body, and I implore all of you to go ahead and do so. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being here today. That'll do it for today's show. Hope you learned something. Hope you'll share the show with others. Make sure you're keeping your mind strong, body sharp, staying prepped with food, water, ammo, money, gold, tools, anything you need to be self-sufficient. Folks, have a great rest of the day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, and God bless.